Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Your life right now is a reflection of the thoughts you've entertained, the beliefs you've held, and the choices you've made. If you want to know what your tomorrow looks like, just take a good look at what you're thinking today. The mind is the soil and your thoughts are the seeds. Plant weeds, you'll grow weeds. Plant visions, discipline, and belief, you'll grow greatness. So tonight I want to talk to you about one truth: your mind creates your future. And I'll give you 10 principles to hold on to. Not 10 theories. 10 truths that, if you live by them, will shape the life you've been dreaming of. Your thoughts shape your reality. That's not just a catchy phrase. It's the foundation of your entire life. If you want to know where you're headed, all you have to do is look at the thoughts you feed yourself day after day. Whatever you consistently think about, you move toward. If your mind is full of problems, you'll find yourself walking straight into more problems. But if your mind is set on possibilities, you start drawing solutions into your path. There was a study at Harvard where they asked people to practice positive visualization before performing tasks. The ones who rehearsed success in their minds actually performed at a higher level than those who didn't. Think about that. The only difference wasn't skill, wasn't talent, wasn't training. It was mindset. Because the brain believes what the mind repeats. Let me bring it closer to home. Have you ever noticed how when someone wakes up already convinced that the day is going to be bad, everything seems to go wrong? They spill their coffee, they get stuck in traffic, someone cuts them off, and by the time they get to work, their whole mood is ruined. That's not coincidence, that's alignment. Their thoughts set the tone and the world followed. Now flip that. Think about someone who wakes up and says, "I'm going to make today count." They may face the same obstacles, but they don't see them the same way. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" it becomes, "How do I move through this?" The problem didn't change, but the perspective did. And that perspective reshaped the outcome. The truth is, life responds to what you dwell on. If you think long enough about what you fear, you'll paralyze yourself. You'll talk yourself out of opportunities you were fully capable of handling. But if you focus on what you want, you start opening doors in your own mind. You begin to act differently, carry yourself differently, and sooner or later, people begin to treat you differently. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man I once knew who grew up hearing that he wasn't smart enough, that he wasn't going to make it. Those words dug deep into his thoughts. For years, he believed them, and every decision he made reflected that belief. He settled for less, he hid his gifts, he lived small. But one day, he decided he was done repeating the lies he had been told. He started repeating something new. "I am capable. I am worthy. I am built for more." Slowly, his actions shifted. He started showing up differently. He started daring to try things he never would have before. And little by little, his reality began to mirror the thoughts he chose to believe. That young man ended up building a life far greater than the one people predicted for him, because he stopped letting their words shape his thoughts and started letting his vision shape his reality. You see, your mind is like fertile soil. Every thought you plant grows into something. Negative thoughts are weeds. They choke your potential and rob you of energy. Positive, disciplined thoughts are seeds. They grow into opportunities, relationships, and breakthroughs. You cannot plant weeds and expect roses. You cannot fill your head with doubt and expect confidence to bloom. So I'll ask you this: what are you planting in your mind every day? Are you rehearsing failure? Or are you rehearsing success? Are you giving your energy to fear, or are you building courage? Because your future is nothing more than the harvest of your thoughts. Believe before you see. That's the secret. That's the difference between people who wait for life to happen and people who make life happen. Faith isn't sitting around waiting for proof. It's daring to move without it. It's choosing to trust the picture in your mind before the world gives you permission to believe it. Every invention, every business, every breakthrough we enjoy today started as an idea no one else could see. The people who made it happen weren't looking for proof. They were creating it. Think about the Wright brothers. Everybody around them said, "You can't fly." Human beings weren't made for that. You're wasting your time. They had no evidence, no blueprint, no model to follow. just a vision. They believed in something invisible, something so outrageous that it almost sounded foolish. But they kept pushing, they kept failing, they kept trying again. And now here we are, boarding airplanes like it's the most normal thing in the world. What was once impossible is now routine. Not because they saw proof, but because they believed before they saw. Let me ask you this: how many dreams have died in people's hearts because they were waiting for confirmation? How many ideas never left the mind because someone said, "I'll start when I know it's safe, when I know it'll work"? If you wait until you have proof, you'll be waiting your whole life. Because proof doesn't come first. Proof is born out of faith, out of risk, out of action. You've got to see it in your spirit before you hold it in your hands. A child learning to ride a bike doesn't start by believing they'll fall. They start by believing they can ride. That belief carries them through the wobbles, the scraped knees, the fear. And once they've done it, no one can take it away. The same is true in your life. If you keep picturing failure, you'll never move forward. But if you can picture yourself rising, if you can believe it even when there's no evidence, you've already taken the first step toward making it real. I'll never forget a story about a young woman who wanted to start her own business. She didn't come from wealth. She didn't have the connections, and people laughed at her for even thinking about it. But she had a vision. She would wake up early every morning, sketching out her ideas, imagining customers, imagining her product in the world. At first, she had nothing, but her belief pushed her to knock on doors, to make calls, to study and learn. It took years. She was rejected, ignored, and even told to quit. But she refused. She saw something bigger than her circumstances. Today, that business is thriving. And when people ask her how she did it, she smiles and says, "I saw it before I had it." That's the lesson. The world may call you crazy, but the world has always called visionaries crazy. The Wright brothers were crazy. The first person who thought we could talk to someone across the globe through a device the size of your hand, crazy. The first dreamer who believed we could walk on the moon, crazy. But those so-called crazy people changed the course of history because they believed before they saw. You've got to make a choice. Are you going to let fear convince you to wait for proof? Or are you going to let faith move you toward your vision? You may not have all the answers. You may not see the full picture, but if you can see the first step, that's enough. Walk it. And then take another and another. Before long, the world will see what you've been seeing all along. Because the truth is, you can't hold it in your hands until you've first held it in your mind. If you want the life you've been dreaming of, you've got to believe it before you see it. That's not wishful thinking. That's how every miracle, every invention, every breakthrough has ever happened. Here's the expanded keynote in a powerful, storytelling-driven style, flowing naturally, emotional, and easy to follow. Without headings or conclusions, guard your mental diet. Just like your body becomes what you eat, your mind becomes what you feed it. If you spend your days filling your head with gossip, fear, and negativity, don't be surprised when your spirit feels weak, when your confidence feels low, when your dreams feel out of reach. But when you feed your mind with wisdom, truth, vision, and inspiration, you grow strong on the inside, no matter what storms come against you. Think about it. If someone ate fast food every day, 3 times a day, what would happen to their body? Their energy would crash, their health would suffer, and sooner or later it would show. The same thing happens with the mind. Every piece of content you consume, every voice you allow to influence you, every story you replay in your head, that's all fuel. Some of it builds you up. Some of it tears you down. There's a saying from Jim Rohn, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And that doesn't just mean your friends and family. It means the voices you're listening to every day. It means the podcasts you're playing, the books you're reading, the shows you're watching, even the thoughts you allow to repeat over and over again. Those things add up. They become your mental diet. Let me give you an example. Imagine 2 people starting their mornings. One wakes up and immediately scrolls through social media, comparing themselves to everyone else, soaking in negativity, fear, and distraction. The other wakes up, reads something uplifting, writes down 3 goals, and listens to a podcast that fuels growth. Both of them face the same world, but their minds are in two completely different places. One is drained before the day even begins, and the other is armed with clarity and focus. That's not luck, that's diet. I once knew a man who was stuck in a cycle of self-doubt. He had talent, no doubt about it, but he kept feeding his mind with voices that told him he wasn't enough. Every conversation he had, every show he watched, every thought he entertained, it was all reinforcing the same lie. Then one day he decided to change his input. He stopped hanging around people who drained him, and he started surrounding himself with people who challenged him, inspired him, pushed him higher. He swapped gossip for good books, wasted time for wisdom, doubt for daily affirmations. Slowly but surely, his mindset transformed. He started walking differently, talking differently, dreaming differently. And before long, his life caught up with his mind. You cannot expect to rise while feeding yourself with things that keep you low. You cannot expect courage while consuming fear. You cannot expect growth while spending hours in environments that stunt your progress. If you want a stronger mind, you've got to choose a stronger diet. Now, this doesn't mean you live in a bubble pretending negativity doesn't exist. It means you choose wisely what you let take root in your head. You can hear criticism without letting it define you. You can acknowledge the reality of fear without feeding it. You can be aware of the world's chaos without allowing it to dominate your peace. Because at the end of the day, you're the gatekeeper of your own mind. Your future is being shaped by what you're feeding yourself today. So ask yourself, what voices am I listening to? What content am I consuming? Who am I spending my time with? Am I feeding fear or am I feeding faith? Because your life is going to reflect whatever you've been feeding your mind all along. Discipline over emotion. That's the line that separates those who dream from those who achieve. The mind loves comfort. It loves to protect you, to keep you safe, to whisper, stay where you are. Don't push too hard. Don't risk too much. But the future requires sacrifice. You cannot think your way into success. You cannot wish your way into greatness. You have to discipline your way there. Every one of us has felt that pull between comfort and growth. You know the moment. You set the alarm for 5 a.m. with big plans to get up and work, to train, to study, to prepare. But when that alarm rings, the bed feels warm, the pillow feels soft, and suddenly your mind becomes a master negotiator. You deserve more sleep. You can start tomorrow. Just hit snooze. That's emotion talking. Emotion seeks what feels good now. But discipline looks past the moment and sees the destination. Discipline gets up when it's tired. Discipline keeps moving when motivation has disappeared. Think about athletes who train before the sun rises. They don't always feel like it. They're not superheroes. They're human just like you. But they've trained their minds to follow discipline, not emotion. They understand that victory isn't earned in the spotlight. It's earned in the hours nobody sees. It's earned when the stands are empty, when the weights feel heavy, when the body screams, stop, but the spirit says, keep going. That's where champions are born. Your future is not built on what you do when it's easy. Anybody can show up when they feel like it. Anybody can work hard when the sun is shining and the crowd is cheering. But your destiny is forged in the hard moments, the days you don't want to show up, the days nobody's watching, the days when every part of you says quit, but you choose to keep pressing forward anyway. That's where greatness lies. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man who dreamed of becoming a musician. He had the talent. People told him he was gifted. But talent will only take you so far. Night after night, his friends would call him out to hang, and night after night, he'd face a decision. Comfort or discipline. He chose discipline. While his friends were out, he stayed in the studio, practicing until his fingers bled, writing songs nobody wanted to hear yet. He didn't feel like it most nights. He wanted to be out laughing, relaxing, enjoying himself. But he chose sacrifice over ease. Years later, the same friends who once told him to lighten up were standing in line to buy tickets to his sold-out show. Discipline carried him where emotion never could. The truth is, discipline is the bridge between your goals and your reality. Emotion is fleeting. It rises and falls like the tide. But discipline stands steady. Discipline is the promise you make to yourself and keep even when nobody else holds you accountable. Emotion says, I'll do it when I feel ready. Discipline says, I'll do it because it needs to be done. You see, success isn't reserved for the most talented, the smartest, or the luckiest. Success belongs to the disciplined. It belongs to the person who does the work when no one is clapping. It belongs to the student who studies when everyone else is asleep. It belongs to the parent who gets up every morning to provide even when they're exhausted. It belongs to the dreamer who refuses to quit even when the road feels endless. And let's be honest, discipline hurts. It demands sacrifice. It will ask you to trade sleep for effort, leisure for progress, comfort for growth. But every sacrifice you make through discipline is an investment. Every rep in the gym, every late night of studying, every early morning of focus, it all adds up. And when the moment comes for opportunity, when the door finally opens, you will be ready. That's what separates the prepared from the unprepared. The prepared live by discipline. I've seen people wait their whole lives on emotion, waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel motivated, waiting for the perfect time. But let me tell you, the perfect time never comes. If you wait until you feel like it, you'll be waiting forever. Emotion whispers delay. Discipline demands action. And the people who win in this life are not the ones who waited. They're the ones who moved even when they didn't feel like it. I want you to think about your own life right now. Where are you letting emotion hold you back? Where are you telling yourself, I'll start tomorrow, when you know you should start today? Where are you choosing comfort instead of growth? Your future self is counting on you. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the person you become will look back and either thank you for the discipline you practiced or regret the comfort you settled for. So, the choice is in your hands. Every day you're given two options, discipline or emotion. One feels good for a moment, the other builds a lifetime. One gives you comfort today, the other gives you greatness tomorrow. Which one will you choose? Speak life into your future. Because words carry energy. Every word you release into the world is like planting a seed, and sooner or later, you're going to eat the fruit of those seeds. What you declare doesn't just describe your reality, it shapes it. If you tell yourself long enough that you're a failure, your mind will start searching for proof. It will highlight every mistake, every shortcoming, every reason why you should give up. But if you tell yourself you're capable, resilient, worthy, and strong, your mind will begin to align with that vision. It will filter the world through that belief and guide you toward opportunities that match what you declared. Muhammad Ali understood this better than anyone. Long before the world believed it, long before he had belts around his waist and trophies on his shelf, he stood up and said, "I am the greatest." People laughed at him. People doubted him. But he kept saying it over and over until the world had no choice but to catch up with his vision. He didn't wait for reality to give him permission to speak greatness. He spoke greatness, and reality followed. That's the power of words. They're not just sounds, they're commands. Commands to your brain, commands to your spirit, commands to the atmosphere around you. When you declare strength, you start to act stronger. When you declare purpose, you start to live with intention. When you declare victory, you start to see challenges as stepping stones instead of roadblocks. I once knew a young woman who grew up hearing nothing but negativity. Her parents told her she'd never amount to much. Her teacher said she wasn't smart enough. Her friends laughed at her dreams. For years, she repeated those words in her own head. I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. And every choice she made reflected that inner voice. She settled for jobs she hated, relationships that drained her, and a life far beneath her potential. But one day she made a decision. She said, if words can break me, maybe words can also build me. She started writing down affirmations every morning, simple but powerful words like, I am worthy, I am capable, I am loved, I am chosen. At first, she didn't believe them. It felt fake, but she kept speaking them anyway. Day after day, week after week, year after year. Slowly, something shifted. Her actions began to align with the words she was declaring. She started pursuing opportunities she would have once avoided. She walked into rooms she once thought she didn't belong in. And before long, her life looked nothing like the one she grew up in. She had spoken her future into existence one word at a time, Some of you have been cursing your own future without even realizing it. You say things like, "I'll never get out of debt. I'll never find love. I'll never reach my goals." And what happens? Your life bends to match your confession. Not because you're cursed, but because your mind is designed to align with your words. The human brain has something called the reticular activating system. It acts like a filter. If you tell yourself you're unlucky, it will notice every bad break and ignore every blessing. If you tell yourself you're strong, it will notice every victory and give you energy to keep going. What you speak, you will see. That's why you've got to be intentional with your words. Don't just describe the life you have. Speak the life you want. Don't just repeat the pain of your past. Declare the promise of your future. If you want joy, speak joy. If you want peace, speak peace. If you want success, speak success. And don't just say it once. Repeat it until your mind believes it, until your body acts on it, until your circumstances align with it. Now, I'm not saying words alone will do the work. You still have to show up. You still have to grind, to sacrifice, to push. But words give you the foundation. Words set the stage. Words create the belief that fuels the action. Without the right words, you'll never build the right habits. Without the right words, you'll never develop the discipline to keep going when it gets hard. So I challenge you. What are you speaking over your future? Are you tearing yourself down or building yourself up? Are you cursing your path or blessing it? Your tongue is either your greatest weapon or your greatest weakness. It can either destroy your destiny or deliver it. If you don't like the life you're living right now, start by changing the words you're speaking. Stop saying, "I can't." Start saying, "I will." Stop saying, "It's too late." Start saying, "It's my time." Stop saying, "I'm broken." Start saying, "I'm healing." Stop saying, "I'm average." Start saying, "I'm extraordinary." It might feel uncomfortable at first. It might feel like you're lying to yourself. But keep speaking it. Because every time you speak it, you're building a new reality. The world will try to label you. People will try to limit you. Circumstances will try to silence you. But don't let their words have the final say. Speak hope. Speak vision. Speak power. Because the life you live tomorrow is already being written by the words you're speaking today. Life will knock you down. That's not a possibility. It's a guarantee. You will face moments that shake you, moments that test you, moments that make you question whether you've got what it takes to keep going. But hear me clearly, the mind decides whether that's the end or the beginning. A fall doesn't have to be a finish. A failure doesn't have to be final. What matters is not that you got knocked down, but whether you choose to get back up. Think about Thomas Edison. He's remembered today as the man who brought us the light bulb. But very few people talk about the process it took to get there. He didn't succeed on the first try, or the 10th, or even the 100th. He failed over 1,000 times. Most people would have stopped at failure number 10, maybe 20. But Edison didn't see failure the way most people do. When they asked him how he kept going, how he dealt with failing that many times, he said, "I didn't fail 1,000 times. I discovered 1,000 ways that didn't work." That's mindset. That's what it looks like to turn setbacks into setups. He understood that every mistake wasn't the end. It was information, it was direction, it was preparation for the moment the breakthrough would finally come. Now let's bring it closer. You and I both know people who faced setbacks and never recovered. They lost a job and they lost their drive. They ended a relationship and they lost their faith in love. They tried something once, it didn't work, and they never tried again. That's the tragedy of life. It's not the fall that kills us, it's the decision to stay down. But I've also seen people who turned those same setbacks into setups. They lost a job and it pushed them to start a business. They faced heartbreak and it led them to discover their own worth. They failed at one dream and it forced them to find another, bigger one. Same pain, different response. I remember a young man who wanted nothing more than to play basketball. He lived for the game, spent every spare minute practicing, dreaming of making it to the next level. But one injury took him out. Just like that, the dream he had been chasing for years seemed over. And for a while, he sank into despair. He thought life had ended. But slowly, he started asking himself, If this door closed, maybe another one is opening. He began mentoring kids in his neighborhood, teaching them the game, helping them avoid mistakes he had made. Before long, coaching became his passion. He realized the injury wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a calling even bigger than the one he thought he wanted. That's what it looks like to let a setback set you up for something greater. You see, a setback is never the end unless you let it be. It's the perspective you bring to it that makes the difference. You can choose to see the wall, or you can choose to see the door hidden inside it. Every struggle you face is carrying something inside of it. A lesson, a skill, a strength that you can use for the next season of your life. When you study history, you'll notice a pattern. Greatness doesn't come from people who never fell. It comes from people who fell and fell again and fell harder and still got back up. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, but instead of letting it end him, he used that time to prepare for leadership. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job, told she wasn't right for the screen. Imagine if she let that setback define her. She never would have become the icon we know today. J.K. Rowling was rejected by multiple publishers before Harry Potter became a worldwide phenomenon. Over and over again, the story is the same. The setup was hidden in the setback. So here's the truth. You don't get to avoid pain. You don't get to avoid failure. You don't get to avoid disappointment. But you do get to choose what those things mean. Will you let them convince you that you're done? Or will you let them prepare you for what's next? When life knocks you down, it's not trying to bury you. Sometimes it's trying to plant you. And if you'll stay in the ground long enough, if you'll water your faith, if you'll keep pushing through the dirt, you'll rise up stronger than before. The future doesn't belong to those who never fell. It belongs to those who decided to get back up one more time than they were knocked down. It belongs to those who looked at their failure and said, "This is not where my story ends. This is where my story begins again." So when you face your next setback, and trust me, it will come, don't let it break you. Let it build you. Don't let it silence you. Let it strengthen you. Don't let it be your finish line. Let it be your starting point. Because every setback you face carries within it the power to set you up for something greater if you refuse to quit. Life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. Storms come, hardships arrive, and suddenly, everything you thought was steady begins to shake. The question is never if adversity will show up. It's always when. But here's the truth: your mind holds the power to decide what that adversity means. You can magnify the problem, or you can magnify the possibility. You can see the storm as destruction, or you can see it as direction. During the Great Depression, millions lost jobs, homes, and hope. Families stood in bread lines, not knowing where their next meal would come from. The world was covered in fear. Yet in the middle of that darkness, some people dared to think differently. While the masses focused on what they had lost, a few began to ask, what can be built here? What can be created in this void? And from that question, new industries were born, new leaders rose, and empires were built that still stand today. What was the difference? Same storm, same hardship, but a different lens. They didn't stop at, why me? They pushed further to ask, what's the lesson? Where's the opportunity hidden in this struggle? That shift in thinking changes everything. Because adversity is not just an enemy, it's a teacher. It doesn't show up to destroy you, it shows up to reveal you. To show you what you're made of, what you can endure, and what you can create when life doesn't go your way. But you only see that if you're willing to look deeper than the surface. I think about a man who lost his job after 20 years of working for the same company. He walked out of that office with a box in his hands and fear in his heart, wondering how he would take care of his family. For weeks, he sank into despair, asking, why me? But eventually, something in him shifted. He asked a new question. What can I do with what I have right now? He started baking bread in his small kitchen, using an old family recipe. At first, he sold to neighbors, then to local shops. Within a few years, he owned a bakery that employed dozens of people. Losing his job wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a dream he didn't even know was inside him. That's the power of seeing opportunity in adversity. When you shift your thinking, the same circumstance transforms. Why me? keeps you stuck, but what now moves you forward. Problems look like walls, but opportunities look like doors. The lens you choose determines the life you live. History is filled with examples. Nelson Mandela could have wasted away in a prison cell, broken by bitterness. Instead, he used those 27 years to prepare his heart, his vision, his leadership. When he walked free, he wasn't just a survivor. He was a man ready to lead a nation. Adversity tried to crush him, but he turned it into preparation. Helen Keller, born blind and deaf, could have been defined by limitation. Yet she saw possibility where others saw impossibility. She once said, "Although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of the overcoming of it." She turned her greatest adversity into the very thing that gave her life power, teaching millions that the human spirit can rise above any limitation. It's not about denying the pain or pretending it doesn't hurt. Adversity is real. The storm will shake you. The loss will cut deep. But when you ask yourself different questions, when you train your mind to seek lessons instead of losses, something inside you grows stronger than the storm. Think about it. Every person you admire today didn't rise because life was easy. They rose because life was hard. They found courage in the chaos, strength in the struggle, and purpose in the pain. What if your greatest challenge right now is actually your setup for something you can't even imagine yet? What if the storm that feels like it's breaking you is actually shaping you? The difference between people who stay stuck and people who rise is not the size of the storm. It's the size of their vision inside it. You can let adversity be your excuse, or you can let it be your engine. You can say, "This is the reason I quit," or you can say, "This is the reason I fight." Both are true, but only one will change your life. So the next time life knocks you down, the next time you find yourself staring at a closed door, stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What's the lesson? Where's the opportunity?" Because hidden inside every struggle is a seed, and if you water it with faith, discipline, and resilience, it will grow into something greater than you imagined. Your adversity is not the end of your story. It's the plot twist that sets up the victory. And if you have the courage to see possibility where others see problems, your storm won't just pass, it will propel you. Consistency builds identity. We love to talk about breakthroughs, about those big shining moments when everything changes. But the truth is, the future is never shaped by one single leap. It's shaped by the quiet, steady steps you take every single day. The little things, the things no one sees, the things you repeat when it feels like nothing is happening. That's where transformation lives. Think about it. You don't brush your teeth once a year and expect a healthy smile. You don't hit the gym one time and expect strength for life. No, those results come from showing up day after day, whether you feel like it or not. Your mind works the same way. The habits you feed it every day create the person you become. Your actions are casting votes for the kind of identity you're building. Every page you write makes you a writer. Every workout makes you healthier. Every prayer, every affirmation, every choice in line with your vision. It all adds up piece by piece until suddenly people look at you and say, "That's just who they are." Let me tell you a story. There was a man who wanted to run a marathon, but he had never even jogged a mile. At first, the idea seemed impossible. He was out of shape, out of breath, and out of belief. But he made a decision. He would run, not a marathon, but just a few minutes each day. The first week, he barely made it around the block, but he showed up the next day and the next. Weeks turned into months, and those tiny steps built stamina, confidence, and strength. A year later, he crossed that marathon finish line. Not because he made one giant leap, but because he chose consistency over excuses. His identity shifted from someone who couldn't run to someone who couldn't imagine not running. That's the secret. Consistency doesn't just build habits, it builds identity. And identity is stronger than motivation. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. Some days you'll feel inspired, other days you won't. But identity, that's who you are. When you consistently act like the person you want to become, eventually it stops being effort and starts being natural. You don't have to remind yourself, because it's simply who you are now. Look at the greats. Muhammad Ali didn't become the greatest by fighting once. He became the greatest because he trained daily, disciplined his body daily, and spoke life into himself daily. Writers who pen masterpieces don't wait for inspiration to strike once in a blue moon. They sit down every day and write, even when the words feel heavy. Teachers who change lives don't show up only when they feel like it. They show up every day, planting seeds that sometimes take years to grow. Consistency is not glamorous. It's not flashy, but it's unstoppable. And here's the part people miss: consistency compounds. Like interest in a bank account, the small deposits you make daily eventually add up to something massive. Miss a day, and it won't ruin you. But show up day after day, and your future has no choice but to respond. Imagine two people with the same dream. One works at it intensely for a week, and then stops for a month. The other shows up every day, even if only for a short while. Who do you think gets further? It's not the sprinter, it's the one who keeps walking. Consistency also rewires the way your brain sees yourself. When you tell yourself, "I'm not disciplined," but you get up every day and take one step toward your vision, you prove yourself wrong. When you think, "I'm not smart enough," but you commit to reading 10 pages a day, your mind starts to grow in ways you didn't think possible. Every action is a vote, and enough votes form an unshakable identity. Let me be real with you. There will be days you don't want to show up. Days you're tired, discouraged, or distracted. And on those days, consistency feels like the hardest thing in the world. But those are the days that define you the most. Anybody can show up when it's easy. The future belongs to those who show up when it's hard. So don't underestimate small beginnings. Don't despise small steps. Your dream is not waiting for one massive event. It's waiting for you to keep showing up in the ordinary moments of today. The student who studies daily builds a future of mastery. The parent who listens daily builds a bond that lasts a lifetime. The leader who serves daily earns trust that cannot be shaken. It's not about what you do once. It's about what you do consistently. The truth is, your identity is being built right now in the small, ordinary choices you're making today. And years from now, when people look at you and admire your success, they won't see the nights you stayed up late, the mornings you woke up early, the repetitions, the sacrifices. But you'll know it wasn't luck. It was consistency. So keep showing up. Keep doing the small things that no one claps for. Because one day those small steps will add up to a future that takes your breath away. And when that day comes, you'll realize it wasn't one leap that got you there. It was every consistent step along the way that built not just your future, but the person you became. Gratitude unlocks abundance. The way you choose to see your life determines how your life will feel. When your mind is focused on what's missing, it creates a sense of scarcity. You start to believe you're always behind, that you never have enough, that you'll never get there. But when your mind focuses on what's present, what's here, what's working, what's already good, you create abundance. You shift from lack to fullness, from complaint to appreciation, from fear to faith. And that shift doesn't just change your emotions, it changes your future. Science backs it up. Neuroscientists have discovered that gratitude literally rewires the brain. When you practice gratitude consistently, your brain begins to scan the world differently. Instead of only noticing problems, it starts to notice blessings. Instead of replaying negative loops, it builds circuits of optimism and resilience. That's why people who practice gratitude sleep better, have stronger immune systems, and report higher levels of happiness. Gratitude is not just a warm feeling you get once in a while, it's a mindset that shapes your future. But let me bring this home with a story. There was a young woman who lost nearly everything in a house fire. Her home was gone, her possessions were gone, and all she had left were the clothes on her back. Most people would have sunk into despair, and she had every reason to. But when she spoke about the fire later, she didn't cry about the things she lost. She thanked God that her children were safe, that her life was spared, that she still had breath in her body. That shift in focus didn't rebuild her house overnight, but it gave her strength to face each day, to rebuild her life brick by brick. Gratitude gave her abundance in the middle of ashes. Gratitude doesn't deny pain. It doesn't pretend hardship doesn't exist. Gratitude simply chooses to look for light even in the dark. It asks, what do I still have? What can I still be thankful for? What good is still here? And when you find it, No matter how small, you discover the fuel to keep going. There's a reason some of the most joyful people in the world don't live in mansions or drive luxury cars. I've seen kids in villages with no electricity laugh harder than kids with every gadget money can buy. Why? Because their joy doesn't come from having everything. It comes from appreciating anything. Gratitude doesn't measure the size of the gift. It magnifies the heart that receives it. Think about Muhammad Ali, who declared, "I am the greatest," before the world ever believed it. Part of that confidence was rooted in gratitude. He often spoke about being thankful for the opportunity to fight, to prove himself, to use his gift. Gratitude anchored him in abundance, even before abundance showed up in his bank account or his legacy. It's the same with us. When you focus on what's missing, life will always feel empty. No matter how much you achieve, you'll never feel satisfied. But when you focus on what's already in your hands, you create a sense of overflow that draws more into your life. Gratitude is like a magnet. It pulls in more of what you already appreciate. I've met people with little money who lived like kings because they cherished every moment, every meal, every connection. And I've met people with fortunes who were miserable because their eyes were fixed only on what they didn't have. That's the power of perspective. Abundance is not about the size of your bank account. It's about the size of your appreciation. Gratitude is also contagious. When you express it out loud, it lifts others too. A simple thank you can change someone's day. Recognizing the effort of a coworker, the love of a family member, or even the stranger who held the door open. Those small acknowledgments ripple outward. They create a culture of abundance, a community where people feel seen and valued. The truth is, gratitude shapes your identity. The more you practice it, the more you become a person who sees blessings instead of burdens. And once that identity takes root, your future changes because you're no longer chasing happiness. You're creating it right where you are. So here's the challenge every day. Find at least one thing to be grateful for. Write it down, speak it out, let it sink into your mind. It could be as big as a new opportunity or as small as the fact that you woke up this morning. Don't overlook the little things, because those little things compound into a life of abundance. When you train your mind to see the good, even in difficulty, life opens up. Doors you never noticed before begin to appear. Strength you didn't think you had rises within you. Gratitude doesn't change what's in front of you. It changes how you see it. And when you change how you see it, you change what becomes possible. So remember this: gratitude is not just a nice idea. It is a discipline. It is a mindset. It is a choice you make every single day. And when you make that choice consistently, you unlock a future filled with joy, resilience, and abundance far greater than you ever imagined. Visualize the life you desire every single day. Take a few quiet minutes to close your eyes and see it. Not as some fantasy, not as wishful thinking, but as a rehearsal. Because what you see in your mind, you are training your life to step into. Your imagination is not a toy, it's a tool. It's the blueprint for your future. Athletes have known this for years. Before the race begins, before the whistle blows, before the ball is even in play, they already see themselves performing. They visualize the steps, the motions, the finish line. They rehearse victory in their minds until their bodies follow like second nature. That's not luck, that's intention. That's discipline of the mind. The same principle applies to leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, anybody who's ever built something that lasts. CEOs walk into meetings already having seen the outcome in their minds. Speakers take the stage having already pictured the audience responding. Musicians hear the song in their heads before the notes ever hit the air. It's not magic, it's mental rehearsal. Your mind rehearses what your body eventually performs. But here's the problem. Too many people are rehearsing the wrong thing. They're rehearsing failure. They close their eyes and picture what could go wrong, how they might fall short, how people might laugh, how they might lose. And the more they run that tape in their heads, the more their lives begin to match it. You cannot rehearse defeat in your mind and expect victory in your life. I remember reading about a man who was terrified of public speaking. Every time he got the chance to share his ideas, he froze. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because he had already played the scene in his head, stumbling, forgetting, failing. That rehearsal made his fear real. But once he learned to flip the script, to imagine himself speaking with confidence, to picture the audience leaning in, smiling, clapping, everything shifted. He went from shrinking back to stepping forward, all because he changed the picture in his mind. Visualization is not pretending. It's preparation. It's aligning your mind with the reality you want to create. Think about the Wright brothers dreaming of flight when the world called it impossible. They saw it before they built it. Or Thomas Edison, who envisioned light filling homes before he ever created the bulb. If they hadn't seen it, they never could have created it. That's how powerful vision is. And here's the thing, your brain doesn't always know the difference between imagination and reality. Studies show that when a person visualizes lifting weights, their muscles actually activate in small ways, almost as if they were lifting for real. That's the mind rehearsing the body. If your brain is that powerful, imagine what happens when you train it every day with clear, focused vision. So let me ask you, what pictures are you holding in your head? Do you see yourself broke, tired, defeated? Or do you see yourself rising, thriving, victorious? Do you see closed doors? Or do you see opportunities waiting for you to walk through? The pictures you hold will shape the paths you walk. Visualization also builds resilience. Because when life hits you with obstacles, and it will, your vision reminds you of where you're going. You might stumble, but the picture in your head keeps pulling you forward. That's why people who have a clear vision can endure more, sacrifice more, and keep pushing when others quit. Their mind is already rehearsing victory, so their spirit refuses to settle for defeat. There's a story of a young athlete who tore his knee and was told he might never play again. For months, his body couldn't move like it used to. But every day, he closed his eyes and saw himself running the field, scoring, winning. That picture gave him hope. It fueled his rehab. And eventually, when he stepped back onto that field, it wasn't new. It was familiar. He had already played that game 100 times in his head. That's what vision does. It makes the future familiar. It takes the unknown and turns it into second nature. So when the opportunity shows up, you don't freeze, you flow. You don't doubt, you deliver. Because in your mind, you've already been there. But hear me on this, it's not enough to just see it once. You have to practice it daily. Just like an athlete doesn't rehearse one time before the game, you can't visualize once and expect results. Every day, carve out time to close your eyes and see yourself walking in the life you desire. See the details, feel the emotions. Picture yourself living the life you want so vividly that when it shows up, it feels like home. The future doesn't begin when it arrives. It begins when you see it. It begins in the vision you carry. So don't waste your imagination on fear and doubt. Use it to rehearse greatness. Use it to prepare your spirit for the victory that's waiting on you. Because if you rehearse failure, you'll live it. But if you rehearse victory, when your moment comes, you'll step into it like it was always yours. Your mind is the architect. Your thoughts are the blueprint. Your actions are the bricks. And your future is the building that rises from them. Don't let the world write your story. Don't let fear design your tomorrow. Train your mind, discipline your focus, speak life into your vision, and watch your future rise up to meet you. Because at the end of the day, it's simply your mind creates your future.